Hello there. My name's Andy Horn, and I'm one of the facilitators on this leadership course. In today's session, we're going to be looking at the foundational areas of leadership, which are imagination, hope, and vision. So this session is really just to add any additional explanation that you might need when referring to the content in the workbook. So I'm going to share my screen in a few moments. I'm going to read through and then maybe add some additional explanation as we actually go through it. So I hope this will be helpful if you need any extra clarity. So I'm just going to bring my screen up now and then work through these things. Okay, so as you can see from the blue exercise page, this gives you an outline of all the actual tasks you need to do. But the main objective today is to actually gain an understanding of the vital connection between imagination, hope, and vision, and how through this greater understanding and awareness, you can actually be empowered to change. So on the how-to there are the list of the actual exercises. I'm going to work myself through the content of the notes here. It was Charles Kettering who said, our imagination is the only limit to what we can hope to have in the future. So there you have the three elements. Our imagination is the only limit to what we can hope to have in the future. Future is really what vision is actually all about. So if we go down to page 1 there, we see there in the introduction that personal leadership is generated from these three faculties or functions of the human soul, of the personality, namely imagination, hope, and vision. As human beings, when we repeat behavior during a certain routine, a daily function, such as brushing your teeth, which hopefully you've all done today, we draw upon our memory faculty in order to do this. However, when we're thinking about any future plans that involve doing something fresh and new, we're actually using our imagination then and there. When imagination is fed by hope, and that's the confident expectation of something good happening in the future, this hope can give birth to a wholesome vision, a picture of a preferred future stemming from the realities of the present. So for all of you listening to my voice right now and on this course, the very act of you having registered for this course will already have required you to engage in all three of these. That you've imagined that this could benefit you in some way, i.e. a hope, and that this hope will enable you to seize future opportunities, a vision that will cause you and those around you to flourish more in life. So there you have it. You've already been functioning in all three of these faculties. Let's have a look at them in more detail to see how we can understand them more fully. So turning the page to page 2. We go up to the top there, reading from the top. Imagination is an essential function of our minds and brains that distinguish us from the rest of living creatures on Earth. Now, whilst the ability to imagine something not visible to us, this may not be unique to us as human beings, but the fact that we can do this so extensively, even from hearing speech as I'm speaking now, or reading language, which is what you're doing on these notes, that faculty is unique to humanity. You're already using your imagination to have a mental picture in your mind from these sounds you're hearing from my voice and from these symbols you're reading on the page. So imagination can be defined as the act of imagining, the faculty of forming images in the mind to conceive, to contrive, or devise. The ability to see the potential in the present to grow and develop into something different in the future, but stemming from the reality of the present. Now, the history of invention can be described by this definition. For example, the history of humankind being able to fly in a plane began with seeing the present reality of birds flying many centuries ago, and then conceiving and reconceiving as to how humans might be able to do this very same thing, which after several centuries of trial and error did become possible, and we'll read about that later. The famous scientist Albert Einstein said that logic will get you from A to B, but imagination will take you anywhere. Which then, to paraphrase Colin Wilson, should mean that imagination is best used to create reality rather than escape from it. Imagination has also been vital for improving the quality of our relationships between families, communities, and nations. Take, for example, our current journey here in the nation of South Africa of building a unified, integrated, multicultural, multiracial nation founded upon equal opportunity for all. Now, whole aspects of that vision would have been declared illegal under the previous regime of apartheid some 30 plus years ago, until voices of people who imagined a different future spoke up and took action to embody a new future and were willing to put their own lives in mortal danger to see that come about. And we all know that many did die and make the ultimate sacrifice as a result. Moving up to page 3. Reading from the top. Okay, for a nation, the Invictus exercise. What we want you to do next, you can either listen to this video all the way through and then come back and fulfill these exercises, or you can chop and change as we go through. But the Invictus exercise is about watching the video link entitled Invictus, which portrays the first day in office of the first democratically elected president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela. If it's possible, you can download the entire movie and watch it at a later date. It's well worth watching. But the questions that we want you to answer, we want you to fill those out on the assignment document attached to this exercise that you can see there on the platform. And you download the assignment, fill it in, and then upload it back up. And with each question, we want you to try to answer them with at least about 100 words. First question is, what did the various characters in these scenes imagine about that first day? What hope, vision did they have as to how it was going to unfold? Secondly, how did what Madiba, Nelson Mandela, how did what he imagined about the future of South Africa differ from many of the people surrounding him and across South Africa at that time? You can take some 10, 20 minutes to answer those questions. Now, moving on. The power of imagination, when it's combined with hope and vision, can transform a whole nation. When it strikes a chord in the hearts and minds of people that brings people together in a united call for action. But this can also be true for our families, our groups, teams, and communities. Now, if you've ever tried crouching in a seated position with your knees bent at 90 degrees, unsupported, you'll know that as an individual, you can only last a minute or two. You can try it now if you want. However, if a group of people facing in the same direction form a tight circle and sit back on each other's knees, it is possible to hold that position for 10 times longer, if not more. The point of the illustration is this. Small groups of people, when working in unity towards a common goal, can achieve what is impossible for the individual. Our communities across this city and across South Africa are full of small groups of people who have united together in action to improve the lives of other people. That might be a feeding scheme, it might be a sports club, it might be neighborhood watch, it might be a creche or a youth club. Imagination in the lives of these leaders in our communities have changed. Now, the next exercise is called Coach Carter exercise. And this is an illustration of how leaders in communities can volunteer and together with other people can make a real change. Again, at a later date, if you haven't seen the movie already, we really encourage you to watch it. It's a true story of how communities and teams can really be changed by the power of vision. For now, we want you to watch the video link entitled Coach Carter on the platform and to look at how members of the squad imagined their future and what was different about what Coach Carter himself saw. Again, you can do that now or follow on as I read through. The 3 questions, again, we want you to answer on the assignment document on the platform using at least 100 words per answer. Firstly, what was the team's expectation of their future together at that point in time when he first meets them? Secondly, what is Coach Carter's expectation of the team's future? And then thirdly, Why did Timo Cruz, a key player in the team, why did he react so violently and so angrily? You can take 20 minutes to answer those. Very often, going back to the notes now, when we allow doubts about our own worth, our sense of belonging, and the value of our contribution and competence, when we doubt all of those, we are held back from flourishing to our full potential to be that flow of life and blessing to our families and friends and communities of which we are a part. And if you've got a faith, you'll also recognize it holds you back from ultimately fulfilling God's purpose in your life. Now, whilst these fears that we all have may not dominate us all the time, they often come to the fore when we're faced with a fresh opportunity or an obstacle to overcome. Now, this is illustrated in our own individual lives by the next video clip that is taken from the film Dead Poets Society. And in your notes, you can see there, Dead Poets Society exercise. Again, if you have an opportunity to download it, watch the whole movie at a future date. But to set the scene, if you can imagine yourself back in high school and having to write a poem that you then had to read out in front of the class, you'll understand the scenario. That's what is happening in the Dead Poets Society. And we want you to watch the character of Todd Anderson. And he's naturally very nervous about this whole prospect to the point whereby he actually screws up, rips up his work and throws it away and is prepared to get a 0 for it. So the questions, which again are to be answered on the attached assignment sheet, are the following. Where was Todd at the beginning? In other words, in his own headspace. And where was he in his headspace at the end? Second question. And then third question, what changed for him in between these two states? Again, you can take about 15, 20 minutes to answer those if you wish now. So reading on, Robin Williams, the teacher in the film, could see that the poet within Todd, he could see that potential, that ability, that skill within him, but it was Todd himself who held himself back. So the conclusion from this is that we all need people around us to challenge us to think outside the box about ourselves. Turning to the next page. Reading from the top. The whole subject of hope. Imagination on its own is not enough and can be dangerous when not fed by goodness and a desire to see all people flourish. The atrocities of the last century under Nazi Germany, the communist USSR, the Rwandan genocide at the end of the last century, and in fact, apartheid here in South Africa, are all horrific reminders of how nations can be gripped by evil visions, birthed by an imagination not filled with hope, but with resentment and hate. So hope is vital, and it can be defined as the following: to cherish a desire of good with some expectation of fulfillment. Hope is sometimes all we have, and yet history teaches us the immense power of this. That sometimes when you've got nothing else, hope can be all you need to sustain you to create a better future. Also, hope can face opposition by people who prefer the status quo or a different hope and vision, as shown in the scene of Coach Carter. Seeing hope develop in our communities is vital if we also want to see a better future for our nation. It takes love and courage, faith, hope, and forgiveness and truth. Question for you, again, to be fulfilled in the assignment, to be answered in the assignment. Who has been an inspiration to you and why? That might be a distant future, a distant figure, should I say, from a different country, or it could be a member of your own family, could be a friend, a teacher, a coach. But who have they been? How did they inspire you and why? And also, what aspects of this hope do you need to hold on to right now? Moving to the next page, page 6. Vision. Vision can be defined as the act of seeing, a look, a glance, a vivid concept or mental picture. Hence a person or a scene of great beauty, a pleasing imaginative plan of or anticipation of future events, an imagined idea or goal to which one aspires. All of us have probably heard of Martin Luther King, who is known to most people by his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech. However, this dream was not just some wistful daydream or wish. It was an indistinguishable fire within him that created practical, provocative, peaceful protest for change, for which he was willing to die for, and for which ultimately he did pay that ultimate price. See the clip below to hear the prophetic speech that he made the night before he was assassinated. Again, in the assignment sheet attached is where you need to answer this following question. Whose vision has caught your imagination and ignited hope? 100 words. For me, many years ago, it was a Christian leader and author called Floyd McClung who inspired me to believe that any individual or city could be transformed by the power of divine love. Now, he modeled this in his life, not just by writing inspiring words from the comfort of his own office, but by sacrificial living with his family in tough inner city neighborhoods when he had many other options open to him. What follows below is taken from an article he wrote some years back as a senior man who was devoting the last years of his life to raising up leaders here in Cape Town from previously disadvantaged communities. He writes on the importance of vision and what it entails. Vision for our lives is a clear mental picture of what could be. A vision for our lives is an inspiring picture of what could happen through our service to others. Vision is also an inner longing for something that you have not yet experienced but want to see happen through you. To illustrate, back to the subject of human beings flying. On December the 17th, 1903, Orville Wright flew the first sustained airplane flight from level ground ever in human history. He flew just 37 meters for 12 seconds. And yet this is recorded as the beginning step, a key watershed moment in human history. And the Wright brothers had a clear mental picture of what this could actually be, even before it happened. That picture and the inner longing to see it happen is what motivated them to dedicate their lives to flight becoming a reality. Turning to the top of the next page, page 7. So vision without commitment is actually just fantasy. It can just be daydreaming. But the Wright brothers had to have the commitment and endurance to go with their vision. It took years of sacrifice and rejection by friends for their vision to become a reality. Most of the people around them thought they were insane. The old saying, you know, if God intended us to fly, he would have given us wings. That's what people said to them. But they saw a different potential future. And now this vision precedes the reality of experiencing it. So the question for all of us today is, how do we picture our lives 10 years from now? What do you picture yourself accomplishing? What vision do you have for your own life? Vision is powerful because it gives significance to the mundane details and the not so mundane difficulties of our lives. In other words, if you have a vision of the future, it helps you deal with the everyday, smaller, less exciting steps that are actually going to get you there. It gives significance to the fact that actually right now you're having to answer questions about film clips, because actually what it's doing is feeding a vision in your own soul as to who you can be 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 5, 10 years from now. It gives significance. But without vision, people languish in mediocrity and mundaneness. In other words, we get stuck in the details of our lives and we run out of energy. So whatever you do, get a vision for your life. And vision weaves at least 4 vital things into the fabric of our lives. Number 1, passion. Vision evokes intense emotion. There is no such thing as an emotionless vision. A clear, focused vision allows us to experience ahead of time the emotions associated with the anticipated future. We dream about scoring that goal when we play in the next game. We begin to get an excitement, a sense of passion for it. And because we have that dream in our hearts, we're actually willing to put through our bodies through discipline and pain and sacrifice in getting fit. In other words, we're willing to sacrifice for our desire to be fulfilled. That's the meaning of passion. Secondly, vision gives us motivation. It provides inspiration. It gives us a reason to do things, to make sacrifices, to say no to other opportunities of lying on the couch and just watching series. We get up off our backsides to get out there and exercise and become honed in sport, if that's your vision. Or it might be to study, or it might be to be an artist. It might be to write songs. Whatever it is, vision gives you motivation. And vision-driven people are very motivated. They want to get things done. So the third thing that vision gives us is direction. Vision takes us in a particular direction. It serves as a roadmap, and vision leads to our destiny. It simplifies decision-making, because if we've got vision, it's far easier for us to choose out of the different opportunities that we have, which one we're going to go with, and not get stuck in the paralysis of analysis of, I don't know what to do. Now, the fourth thing vision gives us is purpose. It gives us a reason to do what we do. Vision gives purpose, and purpose gives us momentum to move in a direction. A vision gives you clarity of purpose to overcome barriers and make sacrifices. Another way to see this vision is that it gives us a reason to do what we do. And where we are as a nation today, in terms of the hope and vision and good things that are there in our nation, is a result of leaders in the past having a vision of the future, which inspired them to overcome the obstacles and hindrances that were in their way. On the final page of these notes, we've got a series of quotes taken from ancient times right the way through to recent times about the importance of vision. So imagination, hope, and vision are key to humanity. They're not some newfound idea about personal leadership. They're actually core to humanity. An ancient Hebrew king, King Solomon, who lived maybe 4,000 years ago or so, he said this: where there is no vision or prophecy or revelation of that preferred future, when that's missing, people just throw off restraint. They perish. Lives just disintegrate. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. Disappointment makes us ultimately sick if we allow it to get stuck into us. But desire fulfilled, hope realized, is the tree of life. It's the essence of coming alive. In the light of these things, he said this: keep watch over your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life. In other words, vision, imagination, hope reside in the heart and not just in the brain. Centuries later, a fellow Hebrew, the Apostle Paul, who wrote large sections of the New Testament, he said this: do not be conformed to this world. Don't become a copy of everybody around you, a copy of this age, fashioned after and adapted to its external, superficial customs, but rather be transformed, changed by an entire renewal of your mind, by its new ideals, its new attitude, so that you may prove for yourselves in your own authentic life what is good, acceptable, and the perfect will of God. A more modern quote that we don't know where it came from, but it said this: if we always do what we've always done, then we'll always get what we always had. If we want to see things change, we've got to begin to see something different and do something different. A fellow Englishman to myself, George Bernard Shaw, said this: a life spent making mistakes is not only more honorable, but it's more useful than a life spent doing nothing. In other words, vision and hope will cause you to take risks, and sometimes you'll make mistakes. But if you're willing, humble enough, and determined enough, you can use those things as stepping stones and not stumbling blocks. He went on to say that a gentleman is one who puts more into the world than what he takes out. You give yourself for the lives of others. And he said this: we're not made wise simply by the recollection of our past, but by the responsibility of our future. Learn the lessons from the past, but be gripped by a vision of the future. And finally, from our own nation here in South Africa, Nelson Mandela said this: I've learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not the one who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. So having imagination, hope, and vision doesn't dispel all the fears out of our lives and make us invincible. What it does do is it gives us the power to conquer those fears and not be ruled by them, to triumph over them and become who we were born to be. Thank you.